You're listening to the Empowered Divorce Podcast, where you practice being the chooser in your life again, one day at a time. Thanks for joining me. Hello, my amazing, beautiful listeners. Welcome back to part 2. This week, my conversation with Sarah Moralas. We are continuing the conversation on self-gaslighting. We are diving into what that actually is and what that looks like. I am excited. I know that sounds so weird to say I'm excited, but what I'm excited for is for you to really hear what this looks like, to take this in, because this is where so many of us can get stuck. And naming it is how we get free. If you took me up on last week's invitation to do the journal prompts, what did you notice? Did you see any of those ropes that you tend to pick up and grab and get entangled in? Maybe your bar slipped lower to keep the peace. Are you a little bit more aware of how gaslighting maybe is still showing up around you? Maybe not even just with your ex, maybe just in other people around you. Are you becoming more aware of what this might look like as we move into self-gaslighting? Keep compassion right next to your awareness and self-compassion to be with you throughout this episode. It might be difficult for some of you. So if anything feels like too much, press pause, take a deep breath, and come back when your body says yes. All right, let me drop right back into where we left off in the conversation with Sarah. Now, where I want to go next with this is, and why I originally wanted to do a podcast episode around self-gaslighting is you've experienced it in the relationship. We talked about a couple of these methods that a lot of you experienced. What I continue to see in the clients that I work with, and they don't realize what they're doing, but they're now self-gaslighting. So here you are out of the relationship. You're no longer needing to interact near as much. There are beautiful legalities put in place. A lot of my clients are not even, like, they're breaking their own legal boundary. Again, thinking that, for example, here's one that comes up a lot. We have the legal boundary that you pay a lot of money for, and of a parenting plan, and the other parent is constantly wanting to shift that. More time, not enough time, whatever. Then there's this inner conflict that my client will have of, well, maybe I need to respond, or maybe I need to accommodate, or maybe I'm being too much. Maybe I'm expecting too much, and maybe I'm being too this because he tells me that I am. Yes, there's still some gaslighting manipulation happening on the other part, but they're doing it to themselves. And they're self-betraying. They're breaking their own boundaries. They're breaking the legal boundary. They're self-gaslighting, feeling horrible about themselves because, in addition to the ex making them feel horrible because they're sticking to the parenting plan. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want to speak to all these ways that I see women continue this gaslighting behavior against themselves. And it is keeping them stuck. It is keeping them from feeling free. And so I'll hear a lot of people say, oh my gosh, here I am divorced, but I don't feel free. I don't feel like I've moved on. I feel like it's worse. And I'm like, yeah.
So I think it's important. Something that I would love to take a moment to do is just explain the difference between 3 different experiences someone might have in one of those types of situations. So your listeners can self-identify when they might fall into these different experiences, right? So if you take the gaslighter who is doing gaslighting behaviors, and someone might have 3 different responses, right? So the first, where do I want to start? I'm going to start with the first one being, they don't necessarily, like the gaslighting, the victim doesn't necessarily experience gaslighting, or self-gaslighting, but they give in, if you will, or make that concession because they have to, because they know with full awareness, if I don't give in to this person, the retribution that I will experience is worse.
My kids.
Or my kids. Well, yeah. But what I experienced because of what might happen to my kids is worse than me giving in. I don't want to give in. I don't think it's right that I give in. If I was safe enough to hold my boundary, I would,
Yeah.
but I can't, right? So that's experience 1. Okay. Experience 2 is you give in and then afterwards you're like, dang it, I gave in. That is not in alignment with my authentic self. I know that this is typically the result of manipulation. By the way, people get manipulation and gaslighting really confused. And so that's why I want to differentiate here. So the person that experiences only manipulation and not full on gaslighting, they're going to feel regret. They're going to have an awareness that what they did is out of alignment with their authentic selves, with other values, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to want to do better next time. Whether or not they do, they're going to want to, right? They're going to have that awareness that that was not my authentic self, right? I got manipulated into doing that or thinking that for the moment or whatever, right? So when we experience gaslighting, and this is where we want to obviously focus in here, is where, and I think it's important also to understand that gaslighting almost never happens as a one-off. It's usually when you've experienced that manipulation 100 times, it evolves into gaslighting, right? So anyways, what happens with gaslighting is I don't just feel regret. I actually start to take on blame. Like I'll blame myself, kind of like you're saying, like it's no longer, I wanted that boundary. I gave in because I was manipulated, but I know it's a valid boundary. That would be regret, right? Gaslighting is, I gave in on that boundary. Maybe I should have. Maybe there was something wrong with the boundary in the first place. Maybe there's something wrong with me that I wanted that boundary, et cetera, right? And those are not, I think the important thing is that when we are able to strip away everything, and sometimes it's a really long process, we find that that's not our authentic self saying those things. Those are the things that have now become programming for us because we've heard them so many times that we now say them to ourselves. Because a component of gaslighting, the external gaslighting that happens initially, is brainwashing.
Yes. Yes.
Right? It's just hard. I don't care who you are. If you hear something enough times from a person that you're supposed to be able to trust and love, it's going to chip away at your sense of self. It's going to.
Yeah.
So it ends up becoming your own narrative. But if you slow down enough and you trace it back, you can identify that didn't originate with me. That originated with this. And it probably honestly originated in a couple of places, not just one.
Correct.
Yeah.
I was going to say a lot of times, I mean, I'll speak for myself. Like a lot of times as I've been over the years deconstructing a lot of this for myself, it does trace back to childhood. It does trace back to even a very strict religion. Like it's all part of that external messaging that I needed to believe for survival and attachment. And it does become then your identity. And so again, it's why I love the word deconstructing, because as you piece it apart, you're like, oh yeah, no, that isn't actually what I believe or feel or think.
Yeah. All right. So do you think was that pretty clear? Those like 3 different kind of experiences or, okay.
No,
So great. So now that we did that, I think it would be helpful to get on the same page of what self-gaslighting is. So I thought if now feels like a good time, I thought I could read a brief excerpt from my workbook that is basically how I explain self-gaslighting. And I do name it as one of the vulnerabilities. Oops, I'm say that again because I was hitting my microphone. I do name it as one of our vulnerabilities. So this is the paragraph. It says, the next vulnerability sometimes gets pushed back when I bring it up, but once you realize how real it is and how much it shapes your inner dialogue, it can feel incredibly liberating. This is the things you do to gaslight yourself. Self-gaslighting, simply put, is when you try to convince yourself that you should think, feel, believe, or perceive something that is out of alignment with your authentic self. Self-gaslighting almost always starts with external gaslighting by someone by someone else that you then internalize, not intentionally. It just happens, right? Because of repetition. You can often recognize when you are gaslighting yourself by paying attention to the words should or shouldn't and maybe I. For example, I should be grateful that I even have a job, because it's not always about relationship, right? If you're in a crappy job and your boss don't treat you well and you're disrespected, well, at least I have a job. Maybe I should just be grateful in this economy or whatever, right? Like there's a running joke in my family about in this economy, right? Like that is actually a self-gaslight. Maybe I should be grateful
Yeah. Yeah.
That I have a shitty job where I'm treated crappy, right? Like, no, kind of a thing. So maybe I should be grateful that I even have a job when your boss is playing favorites to the bros that are way less qualified than you are. Or maybe I am a bit controlling when you get pushback from your intimate partner after you have tried to give a boundary request. This is another. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's it. That's the end of the paragraph. In a nutshell, it's when you try to convince yourself. I want to repeat that line again because I think it's so important. It's like the key of that paragraph. It's when you try to convince yourself that what to think, believe, feel, or perceive something that is out of alignment with your authentic self.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe I should think this way. Maybe I should feel this way. Maybe I shouldn't think right. And maybe the combination of those two things. And it often comes, like I said, in that paragraph, when it starts outside, like when somebody says, you're just like your mom, you're so controlling. And then that starts to make that self-doubt comes in. And we're like, well, maybe I am a little bit controlling. Maybe I didn't realize it because I grew up with my mom is controlling. Maybe I don't even realize when I'm being controlling. Self-doubt.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of slowing down and checking in, which we weren't taught to do. I don't know about you, but I wasn't taught. Like somebody else is saying that I'm controlling. What do I think? Do I think I'm controlling? And well, I don't know if I trust my own judgment on that because usually we don't. So how would I define controlling? Like, let's take it out of that and just like, if I were to define a controlling behavior versus a non-controlling behavior, how would I define them? What would be different about them? Like, let me get a little bit curious here instead of just allowing someone else to define me.
You're really hitting on something I think is really key. And what came up in my therapy is that right there, listening to so many voices and having so many voices in family, extended family, religion, origin, like all the things,
Society. Yeah.
Social media,
Yeah.
like all of it.
Yeah.
And at one point today, my processing, it literally came down to that of, oh, if I turn away from, I was doing like somatic body work and I'm like, my body away from, if I turn away from all of that, then what I experienced was the sheer panic. Because then what? Because then I'm left to my own thoughts and opinions and ideas. And if that wasn't encouraged, if it wasn't safe to do that, then it is going to feel what I felt. And it's like scary as hell.
Oh, it's super scary. I was telling a client the other day when I got to the part in my healing journey, my post-traumatic growth, if you will, where it was time to find myself again. I was terrified.
Yeah.
I was terrified. I was like, there was this like little kind of program that I was doing where it was like certain lessons about like getting rid of stuff and then certain lessons where you're supposed to be able to like hear yourself. And I was like, what if I get to the middle and I can't hear anything?
Yeah.
Like I have lived so long letting other people define me, what I should do with my life, how I should live, what values should be important to me, who I should marry, like all of it.
Yeah.
And I didn't know I had let people do that. But by this point in my journey, I did. I did know that I had let people do that. And now I was like, well, what do I lean on? Because I've leaned on all of these systems and people. My voice do I even have one?
Right.
Right? I was terrified. Now, rest assured, we all do.
Yes.
I love that idea. I love that idea that she was just waiting. She was waiting for me, right? She was just waiting. She hadn't been silenced, right? She'd gotten quiet, right? But
Which was the right, and I'm air quoting, thing to survive in that family system or in that dynamic or in that marriage. I love what you just said right there. I think it's really important. You didn't know, but now you do.
Yes.
And once you know better, you do better.
Exactly. Thank you, Maya Angelou.
Yeah, right. And then you can shift out of that. So when this goes back to what we're saying about psychoeducation, when you know how you might be self-gaslighting, when you are now more keenly aware of the shoulds and the shouldn'ts and the supposed tos and the maybe I should and I have to. That is your little, I like imagine this little emoji guy just like pops up in my brain. This little flag. And I go, oh, wait, hold on a second, time out.
Yeah.
Slow that down and self-correct. But it takes time.
It does take time. And I don't know if I'm jumping the gun or not, but it's just where my brain went. But I think the most commonplace and way that I see my clients beginning to recognize the self-gaslighting that they have done revolves around their bar, right? Like the bar that they set for their relationships with other people. Most of my clients will say their bar is either really super low on the ground. And I've had some clients say, oh, girl, my bar wasn't just on the ground. Like I dug a hole and my bar was like below ground. And then when we are trying, and the tricky part is because our bar had gotten so low, there's this discomfort when we're trying to raise our bar because we've lowered our bar because of the gaslighting. We've lowered our bar because we were told we expect too much or we're too emotional or all of the things, and it's never enough for you or whatever the different things are, right? If you were a better wife, if you were a better mother, all of it. Right?
Yes.
We lowered our bar because in lowering the bar, we were able to stay in relationship with that person, and we're wired to feel like we're going to die if we don't stay with that person or those people or whatever. So of course we choose to lower our bar.
Right.
It's like automatic programming. But now we're at the place where we're like, oh no, my bar is in the ground. Right? Like I'm not okay with this anymore.
Yeah.
But now what do I do? Because every time I try to raise my bar, those voices bombard me. And it's a struggle to think that I'm actually not asking for too much when I say I just want honesty, or I'm not asking for too much when I don't want to be yelled at, or whatever right? Like these things that are really bare minimum.
Well, and yes, and as you're talking, I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh, yes. And what's unfortunate is that unless we are surrounding ourselves with people who also get this
Yes.
and validate this, your brain is going to continue it's going to be reinforced, this messaging or these thoughts.
Yeah.
Because I remember like even some well-intended family members or clergy leaders, it got reinforced when I stepped back into dating. So even being aware of that, it's like this biggest fight really to
It
break
is.
free from this, because you might be aware of it. You might want to raise the bar. You might have your list of,
Yeah.
okay, I'm never settling for anything but this, but
Yeah.
it will continue to be reinforced, that low bar from people, systems around you, if you aren't also aware of the gaslighting phrases in those other areas of your life too.
Yeah. And I think it was in this season of my life that a couple of prompts and one particular mantra became really, really helpful for me. And the prompt was, if I were free to be me, right? That was one of the most clarifying ones, because you take the self-assessment test and like, which one would you more likely do? And like, man, some of us, I think you and I we're in this boat. We're so programmed, like our automatic responses, like we thought we were responding out of our authentic self, but it was actually automatic responses that had been programmed into us.
Yeah.
So I discovered that my initial response wasn't always my most authentic one. So slowing down and saying, okay, that's what I would do if I was trying to be the people-pleasing Sarah, like who's trying to live up to everybody else's expectations of her. Okay, noted. Now, if I were free to be me, right? Like if I were free to be me and to think or feel or believe or perceive whatever I wanted to in that situation, respond however what would feel. I say that I've been saying this a lot in a lot of podcasts lately. At home. Home is what we're looking for when we're looking for authenticity, because a lot of us don't even know how to find what is authentic. What does that even mean? How do I even know when I'm connecting with my authentic self? It feels like home. Well, what does that feel like? We keep asking those curious questions. To me, the best description I have found is a simultaneous experience of peace and joy. Peace and joy. They're both very deep feelings. They're not surfacey feelings. It's a feeling of at ease. There's so many times I've tried to force myself into other things, and there's always some part of me, usually you can identify somatically, right? That doesn't feel right. Right. So we're looking for trying to find our authentic self and all that. And I think I just lost my train of thought because I got off topic, but I think where I started from.
I know, because I'm following real close behind you.
Yeah, I know you are. Man, I had an initial point that got me off on this I thing, but I can't remember what it was. So I guess we'll just have to go
I don't
with
know. We
that.
were talking about the bar, and I know how so many external factors reinforce the gaslighting message.
Yes. And then I said, the things that helped me. Okay.
Yes.
We got there.
We're
So
back.
the
We're
free
back.
to be me, right? So that was really clarifying for me because I got to step outside of, it doesn't matter. Like I don't necessarily have to take any action on it. I'm just trying to figure out, what would I think? What would I feel? What would I want in this situation if I were free to be me? Completely free to be me, looking for peace and joy and that sense of ease. And then the other thing, this is one of my mantras, and it might be the title of my book, which I started, but I only have 4 pages written. Only 4 pages.
More than
So
mine.
y'all are like the first like public thing of anybody hearing my potential title. It's my life mantra. It's I define me.
I love it.
Nobody else. That's what this part of this self-gaslighting, that's like the anti-hero or whatever you would call it, right? Like that's the protagonist of the story, if you will, is that getting to that place of learning that nobody else gets to define me. So when we hear those things of too much or shoulds or shouldn'ts or maybe right, like slowing down and saying, okay, that's a red flag to self-gaslighting. What would I do and think and feel if I were free to be me, knowing that nobody else gets to define me? Nobody else gets to tell me what to think, feel, believe, perceive, want, hear. And so I love the combination of those two things to get curious about whether or not you're gaslighting yourself. A really helpful distinction I give to people when they're trying to get curious around gaslighting is I use my love of donuts to explain the word should and shouldn't when we're talking about self-gaslighting. And this is no joke. I love donuts. I absolutely love, especially the old fashions. They're my favorites. So I try not to use the word should and shouldn't, but we all do, right? But I try not to when it's genuinely not a should or shouldn't. But for the purpose of this analogy, we're going to say, I don't know about you, Amie, but I love going into my local HEB. HEB is a grocery store chain I will miss when I leave Texas because it's the best. It's the best. I love my HEB.
You will miss it. You will miss
I know I will.
Yeah.
So I walk in, bam, right there. First thing is you're trying to walk over and get to the vegetables and all the healthy stuff is the case of donuts. Like you see them there's no way to not see the donuts. Like you can bypass all kinds of other stuff in the grocery store. You cannot bypass the donuts. Nope. So I see them and I'm telling you every single time I want a donut. Every single time. Now, like many Americans, I'm pre-diabetic. Right. Like many Americans, because we eat like crap. My dad also had type 2 diabetes. So I also have some genetics in there, right? I want to be healthy. So one of my values is health and to eat like not a lot of carbs and not a lot of sugar, which is really hard. Right. So I see those donuts. I have 2 options of what I could say. If I'm going to say should or shouldn't, I could say I shouldn't want those donuts. Or I could say I shouldn't buy a donut. One is self-gaslighting, one is not. Can you tell the difference?
You shouldn't want.
Why?
Because it's discounting and negating a want, something that is a desire, which is not bad.
That's exactly. Gold star again. A++, right? But that's how we recognize when we're trying to tell ourselves, I shouldn't want my person to treat me better. I should be okay with their half-ass attempt at recovery. Or right? Like we're trying to convince ourselves to think, feel, believe, perceive differently than our authentic self does. The second one, again, I would prefer to say I am not going to buy that donut would be a better representation of what we're trying to say. But again, I'm trying to help people understand when I am using that word, how do I tell the difference? Because in the second case, I'm trying to herd my love of donuts in the direction that is in alignment with my values,
right,
or my needs, right?
Right.
So in that case, that's not self-gaslighting. In that case, it's telling myself, okay, you love your donuts. That's not bad. And we're not going to buy donuts today. Every once in a while, I let myself buy a donut. We're not going to do it today. We're not going to do it 9 times out of 10 because I value my health.
Yeah. Great example.
Thank you.
Really, really great example.
It's very true too. That's why I can be so passionate about it because I really do love those donuts. So those are just a couple of things I think for people, because I think it can be really confusing when people start talking about self-gaslighting, and especially for people who have experienced gaslighting at a really high, with a real high end gaslighter like you and I have, to think that I would do that to myself. Like
Yeah.
I throw my bullshit flag at that. Like there's no way. Like that's why I get some pushback because people are like, I would never abuse myself. Okay, but we do all the time. We do. Right. That aside, we don't have to be intentionally trying to harm ourselves in order to gaslight ourselves, right? It's simply trying to convince ourselves to do, believe, think, or feel something that is out of alignment with our authentic self.
Yeah.
And again, that can be hard because we might not be super connected to our authentic self. So that's why it's the process that it is.
I really hope everyone can hear that right there. It really has to start with your alignment with self.
Absolutely.
Why your post-traumatic growth work has to continue.
Yeah.
And I want to validate like how frustrating and annoying that is.
Yep.
To feel like, really, this isn't going to end. The post-traumatic growth work, I'll again speak for myself, and I don't know if you feel the same way, but it really has truly blessed my life and my children's life. It really is for me. I had a therapist years ago, not the one I've been with for the last 10 years, but like the one prior to that. She said something that I'll never forget. She's like, look, everything you do from here on out is just for you. And even though I'm processing stuff from maybe the marriage at the time, she was like, but it's for you. And I
Right.
loved that reframe. It really helped, again, let go of another rope. And just that mindset of like, oh my gosh, I'm so done with him. I'm just done. So the idea of going to therapy or doing coaching to talk about that, it was just annoying because I didn't want to have anything to do with him anymore. So just that little reframe for y'all, like this work, this self-reflecting, slowing it down, doing this is for you.
Yeah.
And for your children. Because they're listening to how you talk to you.
Yeah.
They are listening to how you talk to yourself. Do you have any more examples of, like, I want to give them a couple more examples that maybe they can relate to that they might not recognize as self-gaslighting? Is anything coming to mind? I mean, the basic ones of like, I heard you're overreacting. And so I will tell myself that, like, oh, maybe I'm overreacting. Just little things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think so many of them are like, have one therapist that I contract with that she talks about we're each given a ruler. And the problem is we start measuring ourselves by other people's rulers instead of our own ruler. And so anytime we start telling ourselves, I should be more like this person, right? Like, or I'm a bad mom, or I'm right. Like, and the reason isn't because we actually think we're a bad mom. It's because these messages, like I'm thinking the greatness and the evil of Pinterest. Cause I'm thinking like, the Pinterest posts of like lunch boxes that moms send their kids to school with, and like my kids having pizza for the 5th night in a row because I can barely get out of bed. I'm a bad mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like my kids are going to resent me, or they're going to be messed up for life, or lots of these things where again, you're defining who you are based on other people's definitions, not your own. How do
Can I
you
just say, including your kids?
Yes.
When you just said kids, it made me realize too, in a couple client stories, like their kids will come back from the other parent's house.
Yeah.
And well, dad does this, or the other parent does this.
Yep.
And again, another ruler. I love that analogy.
Yep. Isn't
Another
it great?
measuring
Mhm.
stick that we're now comparing and stepping out of what we really need in that moment
Yes.
for that time.
Yes. And because it's normal, natural human to want to be loved, right? To want to be seen as a good parent. When you're confronted with something like that, the knee-jerk reaction is to be like, well, crap, I don't want to be doing things wrong. I don't want, or whatever, right? Instead of, again, slowing down and saying, okay, well, that parent does it that way. That's not how we do it here. We have different values. We have different ideas on parenting, and you might like it more. That's okay. You get to like it more. I'm just going to do it this way here. And you might think I'm a bad mom right now, or you might not like me right now, or whatever. That's uncomfortable.
Yes.
It goes against our wiring.
Yes.
Because we are programmed to believe that we need to be loved by everybody all the time. Right? And if we're not loved by everybody all the time, then something's wrong and we better change.
Yeah.
We better change.
Betrayal trauma reinforces this message. So if you've had it
Absolutely.
before, you didn't have it before, this is going to reinforce it so much more. So like I had
Absolutely.
that before, betrayal trauma just made it that much worse. It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
really, really challenging.
Yeah, and I think something that should be said too, that I just said could be said too, I think that can be really important is the way that we can unintentionally even internalize and gaslight ourselves if we're not careful from beautiful experiences too. Like I'm thinking about a group, like sharing in a group, and one person is in one place and post traumatic growth, and another person is in another place. What's wrong with me? Why am I not in that place? I should be in that place. That's another way of self gaslighting, right? Like, again,
Gosh, how many
anything,
times have we seen this in our groups?
right? Like,
Yeah.
anytime that takes us out of our authentic self, what would your authentic self say to you in that moment? It's okay, darling. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. You are working your ever loving ass off, and it's perfectly okay for you to be where that's what our authentic self would say,
Yeah.
right? Not this inauthentic self. That's another example. Or, I mean, we can do it in so many places. I've struggled throughout the past few years because the way my business has gone is being like, I'm just not as good of this as that person because look how successful they are or whatever. Because I'm measuring success by this standard or by that standard instead of slowing down and saying, okay, but how do I measure success?
Mhm.
Right? Like if I didn't care about this metric that is set out by the world, how successful do I think I am? Now, does that pay the bills? Maybe, maybe not. So that's valid, but let's take out the word success.
Yeah.
Cause then I'm like gaslighting myself that I'm not successful when I actually am. I'm actually quite successful. But I could actually question that if I start to use the metrics and the definitions of other people.
Mhm,
How
mhm.
do I define that?
And play that through, and once you do, because I know you've done this work, once you do
Mhm.
that and you strip away all of the rules, the messages, the
Mhm.
roles, this, then you really do find your core that we've been talking about, and then options open,
They
right?
do, and when I'm thinking about back to why I'll die on this hill, so to speak, right? About this, to me, this is the last level of freedom when it comes to the work that we do around gaslighting. Like typically it's my intimate partner and learning all of that and getting safe in that. But like true freedom and liberation comes with this work. And so going back to that kind of analogy of the even if your person is still throwing bombs, right? When you know that you know how to keep yourself safe and that's what being free and liberated is, you're like, okay, like it doesn't even really scare me anymore. It's a nuisance.
Mhm.
It's a nuisance, right? Because every once in a while the bomb's so big, it causes a vase to fall off the shelf. That's a nuisance, but I know I'm safe. Nothing they do, right? And that's not to say that our gaslighters don't ever do something that don't make us safe. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say there's a difference. Like when we get to that level, when we know ourselves so intimately, because that's really what it's about, then we're not so shaken, right? Like even if somebody says something that throws us for a loop, like we know how to get back to ourselves.
Yep.
And so the work, like it's the most rewarding work. I
Mhm.
mean, the freedom that comes when you realize, "Oh, I was just gaslighting myself."
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna do that. Like, what's my authentic self saying? Like,
Mhm.
how am I gonna step into owning that and being free and liberated here
Mhm.
by being in alignment with my most authentic self? How can I nourish that? What things can I say to my authentic self to grow that connection and make it stronger? How can I counter the things, the shoulds or the maybe I's? What can I do? With those I mean, it's just it's so powerful.
So freeing. I say at the end of every I don't know if you know this, I say at the end of every podcast, you're the chooser in your life.
Mm,
You can create the life that you want because you
mhm,
can, like you just can. And when you really become the chooser, which means freeing yourself up, stepping into your agent power mode,
mhm,
then you get to create. You could create because there are more options than we ever could see when we are living in the roles and the rules and the shoulds and
mhm,
shouldn'ts and all the things that when you get rid of all of that, there are other things available that you might not
mhm,
have seen before. I will use the analogy of like, I felt like I lived in a world of blue, and it was blue. I don't
Mhm.
blue. And then I just it is what it is. And then all of a sudden you start getting rid of all of this and getting rid of this and then getting rid of that role and getting rid of that. And it's like, oh my gosh, purple. Oh my gosh, there's purple. Oh my gosh, there's pink. And it's the most incredible thing. Now I can create a painting. Now I can really create because I have more colors.
Yes.
But we have confined ourselves and been confined to just live in one color.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I say one more thing? I know we've been talking for a while, but can I say one more thing I think is important?
Yeah.
When we're trying to break free, if you will, I think one of the stumbling blocks that there can be for people is understanding the difference between compromise and concession.
Ooh, thank you. Please talk. Yes. Yes.
Okay, I like to use a story to help people visualize the difference. And I know it's simplistic and it's not always this simple, but it's the principle. And if a principle is true, we can figure out how to apply it in even more complex situations, right?
Right.
So let's just pretend I didn't have a super busy day today, but let's just pretend I did. Let's pretend it's one of my days when I have like 3-hour intensives and then group and then all of the things. And oh, it was also supposed to be my night to make dinner. Right. And at the end of the day, I was being really super optimistic when I made the plan for the weekend. I thought I'd be able to cook dinner. At the end of the day, I'm like, I do not want to cook dinner. I'm tired. I don't want to prep. I don't want to clean up. Let's just go out for dinner. Okay. My value in that moment is self care. Right. Now, my partner values money, not in like a bad way, but like being budget conscious, all that kind of stuff. Well, if we go out, we already have this food. We might end up having to throw it out. Right. That's wasting money. Right. If we go out, we're going to spend a lot more than we would if we eat at home. Right. So we have a conflict in values there.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, when you're in a relationship where there's compromises, one of two things is going to happen. One example, it's actually my favorite example, is when my partner could say, well, why don't I cook? You get your value of self-care. I get my value of saving money. Both of our values are being respected and honored and listened to. They might just be happening a little bit differently than we had pictured them happening. That's where we are compromising on how those values are being met,
Mhm.
right? That's where the compromise
It's
comes into play.
mutual. It's collaborative.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's one way. The other way compromise can happen is you take turns. Okay. So maybe my partner also doesn't want to cook. So then, okay, well, this time we're going to go out. Maybe next time when I want to go out and you want to stay home, we'll stay home. We'll take turns because, again, you're looking for that mutuality. Okay. Concession making is one of two things, right? Concession making is when it's never mutual. It's always you giving in and the other person's quote unquote value or need or want is getting met and yours isn't. The other is I'm going to say you're actually this is how we know when we're stepping into self-abandonment, which is connected to concession making, right? Like when our values and needs are not being met. Or even more clearly is when we are going against one of our values.
You have to surrender a value in order
Correct. We have to abandon ourself
to.
in order to agree with the other person.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. And that's, again, we're talking about something that would be an actual value or need, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a
Yeah.
different than a preference, right?
And I
Like,
see this when we want to avoid conflict or
yes. And again, that's where we circle back around to those three different things that we could do in that moment, right? We might have to concede in order to keep the peace. That's a legitimate, necessary decision for some people.
Mhm.
I make up quite a few of the people that you work with,
Mhm.
at least some of the time, right? This is not what I want to do. It's against my values to give more time with my kids to this person that I don't trust. I have a client who's doing this right now. But if I do that, then they're not going to drag me to court or whatever, right? Or they might do it and then they're like, "Oh crap, like I just abandoned my value and I regret it and next time I'm going to try to do better to," or we make a concession and we convince ourselves that it was the right thing to do and I should actually change what I think and feel in that situation to align myself with the person who is asking me to make concessions. Right?
Yeah.
And part of the reason we do that, it's all linked. I'm thinking of my progression of effects scale, right? And I'm thinking like most of us who are in listening to this podcast have been so far up the progression of effect scale that we're weary of the fight for ourselves. We're just weary because we know we get so much pushback when we try to fight for ourselves that subconsciously we're like, we can only live in that conflict, that really high conflict that causes cognitive dissonance where I can't choose. We can before we have to choose. And because it is easier to self-abandon for a while.
Yeah.
Until it's not, right? So we end up making that concession and aligning ourselves with the gaslighter unintentionally, because nobody wants to do that. So we unintentionally do that because it's a reprieve from the battle, the internal battle. It's a reprieve from the weariness and the exhaustion that many people feel when they've gotten to this level because of the constant barrage of gaslighting that will happen until we do concede.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is where I would stay small. It's where I would become very resentful.
Yeah. I mean, this is where I took on the things that my ex was saying about me.
Yeah.
You actually start behaving in the ways that aren't authentic to you.
Yeah.
I started becoming more of an angry person because he told me I was an angry person.
Right.
I had to find alignment somewhere.
Yeah. I think I've shared this story before in one of the episodes, but I remember it's one of the clear moments for me, my ahas of I'd left. I was already living in an apartment with my 4 kids and something happened and I didn't get angry. And it was that moment of you should be angry about that. I'm not.
Mm,
Wait a second. And I
mhm.
remember in that moment going, I'm not an angry person.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. Lots of those aha moments,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Fortunately and unfortunately, right? We come back to ourselves.
You do. And those are the moments that help you come back to yourself. It's that there's grief mixed with that. Like, oh no, I thought I was angry person. No, no, how sad for that past self. But oh, yay, I'm really not. Move forward. And really, that's not who I am. And that was a moment of redefining, which is so important in this whole process.
Mhm.
So important. Oh my gosh. Okay. I know you and I literally talk forever. Is there anything else that you feel like this unique group of listeners who
Mhm.
divorce, I say a life-saving divorce,
Mhm.
different than other divorces. A lot to unpack, a lot of pieces
Mhm.
to healing when you've had this kind of a divorce. But
Mhm.
besides going and getting your workbook and becoming a
Mhm. Mhm.
gaslighting expert,
Mhm.
what are some other things they can do that are just tangible? Just
Yeah. The thing that I referenced earlier was Heather Plett's The Spiral Path. It's I want to say, I don't even know how many weeks, 20 something weeks, or we did it in weeks. It's like a daily email. I don't know how she's doing it now, but that was the thing where it was like going into myself and finding myself. She's got beautiful exercises, all different kinds of things. That's something I think would be really great. Obviously your stuff, which your clients don't need to necessarily know about because they already know about, but like all your dating within. I actually told somebody about that the other day. I was like, you need to do like one of my colleagues says, and you need to date yourself. And that doesn't mean take yourself out to a movie. It means when you're first getting to know somebody, whether it's a friend or romantic, and you just like, I want to know everything about them. And so I ask all the questions, like do that with yourself.
yep.
Ask yourself. That's how you get to know yourself.
Mhm.
You said ask yourself all the questions. Treat yourself like you,
Literally down
yeah.
to like when you go eat, are you really eating what you want to eat?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I remember doing this and putting cranberries on my salad and going,
Mhm.
wait a second, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
I actually really don't like this, but this was something that was just like you just put cranberries on a salad. It's just
Yeah.
did it. So
Yeah.
just those you can break it down that small if what we're saying
Yep.
is too big. Just yeah, do I really like
Yep.
this?
I think one of the outside of like books or that kind of things, I think a tangible or practical thing I think that people could do as it pertains to this kind of like self-gaslighting and trying to get to know yourself thing is being very aware of your mindset, especially when you're trying to step into any kind of learning or activities or mantra creating or working on your self-talk or whatever it is. Be mindful of your energy and your mindset from the start. And that is one of, and this is because I'm a science nerd, but I would say to like give yourself permission to treat yourself as an experiment. And what I mean by that is getting out of the place of, I have to figure this out and I have to be right about myself right now. And instead treating yourself the way you would treat shopping for a pair of jeans, right? Like you're going to take 10 pairs of jeans into the fitting room, right? And you're not going to take the first one that you try on. What if it's tight in the butt and perfect in the waist? Like you wouldn't do that. You'd be walking around all like tight.
We wouldn't. Great. Yes, I love it.
Right? So it's like we're gonna keep trying pants on until we find the pair that fits right in all the places.
Yes.
Right. So allow yourself, as you're trying to figure out yourself, like maybe you are going to try to figure out what kind of genre of movies you like the best. And every one of your friends is raving about Twilight, and you go and you watch it and you're like, yeah, I liked it, but there's this, and this I didn't like about it. Well, it doesn't mean it has to become your new favorite genre, right? Like keep trying it out until you find, oh, it's actually Lord of the Rings. Like that's my jam. Like I am no man. Right. Like, I don't know, anybody who's a Loader fan will know that quote. Anyways, right. Like we keep, and I know that's a silly example and I'm doing that on purpose, right? Like, but we do that from silly to serious, right? Like we allow ourselves to say, I don't have to quote unquote get it right. Not only do I need to find myself, some of us for the first time ever, also curveball, we're going to evolve.
I was just going to say, it's going to change.
So this is a lifelong practice.
Yes.
It's a lifelong practice of figuring out, okay, so 2 years ago at the place I was in my post-traumatic growth, this is what I wanted. This is what I thought and believed. And I've grown in those 2 years. This is now, I'm raising my bar even more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like we continue. It's the pants analogy because our weight is going to fluctuate. You know, if you get in menopause.
Every week.
Exactly, Bryce.
I should organize my jeans by week.
Right. But in all seriousness, like that mindset, that permission giving mindset of, man, I found my power by checking in with myself and giving myself. I'm thinking of this thing that I'm not going to get it quite right, but my coach actually gave this to me years and years ago. But it's like, I get to want what I want. I get to change what I want. I get to expand what I want.
I love that.
It's something close to that.
It's a growth mindset, and it's become my non-negotiable.
Exactly. And that, I mean, that's one of the things, like if you want a safety net that's going to keep you from falling into gaslighting and self-gaslighting, that's it. Like if you stay committed to knowing yourself and all the things, slowing yourself down, which can be hard to do, especially in both these days and these chaotic times. It can be hard. There's always something coming at us.
So hard, but you can't afford not to.
Can't afford not to, because power comes from slowing down.
Yep.
Even if it's for just a few minutes.
Truly.
Yeah.
Truly.
And then just for funsies, I'll put this out there. I don't think you'll care. And if you do, you can cut it. But I do have a store. It's called Sassy Sarah's Merch. And my favorite t-shirt is I have a t-shirt and I have a mug and I have a sticker. So you have different options if you want to get some motivational stuff that help remind you of these things. But my favorite one is it looks like a definition. If you were to Google, what's the definition of a glass, right? It's going to give you what it sounds like phonetically. And then it's going to give you if it's a noun or a verb or whatever, and it gives you the definition. So I have this t-shirt where it says me, and then it gives the phonetic spelling of me. And then underneath it says something you don't get to define.
I love it.
So I've
seen that one.
Yeah. So it's actually my favorite. I have a tank top like that. But, for me, I don't know if you do video too, but I love stickers. So that's why I made sure I had stickers. But things like that, those little memories, like I'm going to wear my me shirt today. I need it. I need to remind myself that nobody gets to define me today, even if I wear under something else and nobody else sees that I know that I'm wearing it. Or I'm going to put this sticker on like the inside of my laptop so that every time I open it and I have to get on a Zoom call with my ex, or I have to go with the lawyer or whatever, like I can see that, or I can see one of the other things I have on there is a little thing that it's like a character of a little girl, and the shadow is like Supergirl, and the Supergirl has the logo of my logo in the middle. And then this actually comes from one of my groups where this woman said, I'm learning how to stand up on the inside. So these little things, I know you've got some great ones too on your store. And I'm not just making a plug for my store. I make very little money off the stuff in my store, like very
It's fun stuff. I love it.
negligible, right? But there are things like I created it. They all come from the mantras that have stood the test of time of over a decade of working with clients that have been the most like things that people come back to time and time and time again when they're in their places where they need that little extra boost. So that's a resource too.
I love it. So grateful that you joined me in this conversation. Way better than I would have ever done.
Oh, yay.
Thank you.
Good. Well, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Very much. All right. Well, I will wrap up with, I know I said it earlier, but everything, amen to what Sarah said. And as always, you all truly are the chooser in your life. And when you step into that, you get to create the life that you want because you can. Take care, everybody. If you are interested in any of the resources or online stores that Sarah and I talked about, both of our websites to those stores will be in the show notes. And as a certified deconstructing gaslighting specialist through Sarah's program, if you are wanting to dive in more around gaslighting, your experience perhaps with it in your past relationships, other relationships, I use her workbook to help support my clients to further their psychoeducation and work through this. So if you feel like you might be stuck here, then feel free to reach out and we can tackle this together. You don't have to do this alone. All right, everyone, I will see you soon.